So like stabilizing the mental system is is like making a car do a backflip or something. It's not inherently a stable system. But if we're living as the mental system, as the thoughts, as the body, then there's a need or a craving to try to stabilize that system because instability or instability is it's anxiety inducing. So I think a lot of the suffering comes from, I mean, all of the suffering comes from identifying as that unstable system, as living as the mental system, which is inherently unstable. And I don't really think you need me. Oh, my scratch bastard, sure, best DJ in the game. I don't think you really need me to tell you that the mental system is unstable. Yeah. If you're in a relationship, one day you love that person, the other day you're mad at them, the next day it's this, this, this. Yeah. You can look at any kind of happening around you to understand that the mental system is not really that stable. It's happy one day, it's sad the next day. Even minute to minute, it's altering and shifting all the time. So if I'm living, or if we are living as that mental system, yeah, our existence, our experience of living is going to be unstable. It's just the nature of the mind of dualism, yeah, because the mental system is dependent on causes and conditions. So it's going to be ever changing with whatever causes and conditions it comes into contact with. It's just going to be constantly moving. Now, if I'm dependent on the condition of the head, the thought system, for my stability in life, I'm not going to get stability because it's an unstable system, because it's based on causes and conditions. And those causes and conditions are constantly changing, and so is the mental system. I mean, I feel like we have to see that. When you go into recovery, right away they're hitting on a higher power. Why are they hitting on a higher power? Because the system of self, the idea that I'm a separate individual self as the mental system, yeah, has failed. It's failed. Its instability has proven itself time and time again. And that instability of the mental system has gotten so uncomfortable that I need to get away from it. So I'm drinking or I'm drugging or I'm doing whatever I'm doing to try to get away from the mental system. So there's a reliance right away on a higher power. Why? Because a higher power is a stable system. Whatever that higher power may be, you know, it's going to change for everybody. But it's going to disentangle you a little bit from the instability of the system, of the thought system, which is not, in my experience and humble opinion, is never going to be stabilized, which is a thing we see in meditation all the time. People are meditating and meditating and meditating and meditating, like they're sitting 16, 18 hours a day trying to stabilize the mental system. Now, the mental system can definitely calm down. Yeah, the spectrum can close. But to think you're going to stabilize the mental system permanently is just not going to happen in my experience. I just don't see it happening because the mental system is too fraught. It's blown by the wind, you know. It's like trying to stop a river. It's just not going to happen because it's the nature of the mental system. So even if you sit for 16 hours and there's that point of stillness, as soon as you get up from that, the head's going to kick back in. What the head's honestly going to do is claim the stillness, and now it's going to be the enlightened one, which again is just going to go unstable eventually. So to try to find stability or relief as the mental system, like a real lasting stability, is just not going to happen in my experience. I just don't see it happening because it's based on those causes and conditions. So when we go into recovery, there's this higher power. So now I'm turning, instead of relying on that unstable, constantly moving thought system, which has really proven itself to be very, actually quite dangerous if I listen to it all the time, because I'm getting flipped so hard. Yeah, I'm then going to turn the attention towards the higher power, whatever that higher power may be. In this case, we're talking about awareness or beingness. Now, beingness or awareness is completely stable. It always has been, and it always will be. Yes, it is who you are. You are the stability before the unstable happens. And the unstable is beautiful. It's playing with life, causes, conditions, everything's moving all the time. But if we're living as that system, it's going to feel turbulent. Life is going to feel turbulent. So then what happens? Yeah, life feels turbulent, and then I want to shift that turbulence to stability. But I'm identified as the thought system. I'm not initiating the thoughts. You're not initiating the thought system. You're not doing the instability of the mind. Yeah, it's a happening, it's an activity that's moving around. We are the awareness that's aware of that. Yeah. So we come before all of that movement. You're not initiating it, but by listening to that instability, yeah, the instability, let's say the thoughts are speaking to us as us. They're speaking to you as you, and you're listening to them and buying into what that is selling. So now you're living as the unstable system. As the unstable system, you're then trying to get free from that system as it. That's also not going to work because it's an unstable movement. So whether you're going to a psychotherapist or whether you're meditating or whether you're doing yoga or whatever you're doing, yes, those practices will come to a head once you see you're not the system that's doing the practices. Because instability is not going to be able to get out of instability. We become more stable. The real relief is seeing that you're not the system that is unstable. Once you see that you're that, there's a stability which is always there, which you've always been. And like I said, you don't really have to listen to me because instability is pretty obvious as far as the mental system is concerned. There's thousands of thoughts happening every day and they're bouncing around over here, 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 here. If you really look at it, I would highly doubt that you would agree that you're initiating all of those thoughts. Yeah, there's something happening. There's a happening or an activity going on that seems to be going on by itself, really. And it's not that stable because it's based on what everything else is happening. I think it's super important to see this because I see it like a lot in spiritual practice or even in wherever, when I'm working privately with people. There's a identification with the unstable system, the thought system, the mental system, what's going on. Yeah. And because of that identification as it, yeah, I'm also then identified as the body, which obviously is changing constantly. So if the body's changing and I'm trying to stabilize my experience as the body, that's going to be a lot of suffering because the body's not going to cooperate. It's not going to stabilize the same way the head isn't going to stabilize. The freedom comes from seeing that you're not it. Yeah, where you're not it and that what you are is stable. Awareness or beingness is stable. Then the instability doesn't become so uncomfortable because it's not inherently yours. It's part of your experience, let's say, for lack of better words, I guess. And that's the relief because we can calm down that mental system, but to completely stabilize it on long term, like get real relief, it's just not going to happen as that system. So that's why that higher power aspect is so important, whatever that means for you. Because now we're no longer relying on the instability of the mental system. Yeah. Because really it's just constantly moving. It's like being on a raft in the ocean, yeah, and you want the raft to be still. This is not going to happen. It's not its nature. The ocean's nature is not to be still. Yeah. The head's nature is not to be still. The body's nature is not to be still. It's happening. It's moving all the time. It's why it's interesting that all these people write books on recovery and addiction and all these things. when the big book, the main book of recovery, says self-knowledge avails us nothing. Yeah. Because if I'm reading a book about recovery, what is getting that knowledge is the head, it's the mental system. That's an unstable mental system. That knowledge avails us nothing as far as recovery is concerned. Yeah, so bolstering up the head with a bunch of information might seem very useful, but inherently it's the system itself which is holding the information, which is causing the issues. And if I'm living as that system, I'm going to have a lot of issues. So to constantly keep writing books about recovery, how to recover this way, you can read all of those books, but if you're not looking at the system, which is reading the books and getting the knowledge, you're not understanding that that is the unstable system that's causing the issues. The issues will continue. Reading books infinitum. Yeah. So I really think like healing comes from this aspect of calming the mind enough that you see you're not it. You're not it. And then, as we've talked about before, then you can really be honest about that system. Because the mental system is not going to be honest about the mental system. It's always going to have its ideas. It's going to paint it with um, its frequencies. Yeah, it's going to paint the picture that it wants, and it does not want you to paint the picture of, oh, the head is the problem because you're living as the head. Yeah, it wants to maintain that control. And the unstable system will keep identifying with things and will keep pulling us around until we see that we're not it. Oh, no, we're good. Until we see we're not it, yeah? So if I have depression, now I'm the depressed one. There's the identity. If I'm grieving, well, now I am grief. Now the identity will go that way. If I get a new job, the identity goes that way. If I get a new relationship, the identity goes that way. That's the instability. It's constantly going to keep moving around until we look at it. Yeah. Depression, grief, all of these things are happenings. They're natural movements. But if I identify with it, that instability pulls me into it. Now it's not that grief is happening, it's I am grief. And grief goes from a couple months to 20 years. So I really feel that we need to see that mental system that we're identifying as often is really kind of the hub of the wheel which is causing the issues. Now, is the mental system going to inherently change? I feel like it can calm down, but it's not going to stop being unstable because it's always based on causes and conditions. But life becomes a lot more comfortable. It runs a lot smoother when I know I'm not the unstable system. And then what happens is, as the listening, as the awareness or the seeing of what we're not, the system itself, the mental system will soften. It'll calm down quite a bit. Because thoughts don't really have power until I listen to them. So the instability or the movement of the head only gets power when I give it power as beingness. So if I'm not giving it the power, it's going to lose its power because it has no power. So the instability, the movement dissipates quite a bit. Yeah. Not to say that it'll stop, but it'll dissipate quite a bit. And not being identified as it, things go like from this to, you know, a spaciousness, a spacious stability that instability moves through. Now that's the relief. That's the freedom. Because as the movement, I'm going to want to get out of that movement. It's uncomfortable. For some of us, it's super uncomfortable because it leads to depression, it leads to anxiety, it leads to all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So as if I'm identified as the movement of the mental of the head, if I'm identified as that and I want to get away from it, I'm trying to get away from it as it, which I can't do. So then harmful things become an option because I'll do anything to get away from that instability for a little bit. I'll drink, I'll drug. Yeah. But if I'm identified as it really tightly and the instability is waving back and forth like crazy, that's what was going on in my head a couple of years ago. Super highs and super lows, moving really fast, changing. Because I'm identified as the head, I'm identified as the body. So the option then to really stop it, to get permanent relief, is to kill myself. That's like the go-to, you see. But all of that is based on, it's all based on the idea, and it's just an idea, that I am that unstable mental system. You see the power of seeing that you're not the movement of the head? It's incredibly powerful because what you are is belief. And if it's put into that unstable system, your experience is going to be turbulence. It's just going to be movement and anxiety and craziness, and you're going to want out of that. Yeah. But if you simply see that you're not it, and there's many ways to do that, just look at your day-to-day experience. Are you firing all of the random thoughts that are happening, going from happy to sad? This person likes me, this person hates me. I'm good now. I don't know if I'm going to be good later. I hope that person's happy, but with what I said to them, and this and this and this, it's just going like wild all the time. The reason it's shooting so much back and forth is because I'm believing what it's telling me. Blah blah blah. It's like talking to me, and I'm going yes, 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 and then it's going yeah, 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 and it's super feedback. Yeah. So it's unstable on steroids. So does it really feel like you're initiating that? Because it doesn't for me. I don't feel like I'm initiating what the head is doing. Love somebody one day, hate them the next day, annoying today, good today. Oh, I don't know about today. Oh, I don't know about it. Yeah, it's like, what's going on here? You know? I feel like the most important thing that we can do for relief is to see that we're not it. You're not it. And then what happens when you're not it? You leave it alone. You leave it alone. How do you let muddy waters settle? You leave them alone. Mm-hmm. Because they're not yours. That's the kicker. If I'm living as the system, I won't leave it alone because I'm living as it. So I'm going to try to stabilize it somehow, which is never going to happen. It's not going to happen like that. But if I see that I'm not it, I leave it alone. The whole system settles down on its own. The stability comes from before the movement. You are that stability. That is what you are. So we need to get the cart in front of the horse here because otherwise it's just going to continue. The discomfort is going to continue. And there's not really going to be that relief, that like long standing relief, that stability to live from. Whether it's through addiction recovery or psychological healing or embodiment or whatever you're doing, yoga, anything. We've got to see the unstable system for what it is. And then what happens when we see it for what it is, we no longer try to stabilize it because we know it's very obvious. You're aware of it. You're aware of the instability. Yes. Because if I'm trying to stabilize it as it and it's not stabilizing, but I think I am the head, I think I am the mental movement, I think I am the body, and they're not doing what I want them to do because they're not going to, because it's impossible, it's beyond that system to do it. I'm going to get really mad at myself. You are not getting mad at yourself, but the head is getting mad at the head for not being able to stabilize the head, which it'll never happen. You see? Frustration in meditation comes from that. It's from that. Oh, I can never stop my thoughts. That's because your thoughts are never really going to stop long term. But thankfully, you're not the thoughts. Hallelujah. So sit away and enjoy the show. That's the big, it's like the crux of the whole thing. And it's really a movement of belief. Ah, I'm not that. I'm not that. Well, then what am I? You find out once you see you're not that. And it's much more comfortable. What you find out is much more comfortable than the instability of what you're living as. What you're living as, the idea. Not what you are, but what you're living as. Amazing. Yeah. You know, I share it because it's just, I have so much gratitude for that message. That message. Advaita Vedanta, Zen, Chan, whatever. Call it Buddha, call it God, call it whatever, but the stability of what you are is vastly more comfortable than what you're taking yourself to be. And it's vastly less harmful for those who, might have depression, heavy anxiety. Because the harm comes from thinking that I am the unstable system. And not being able to get out of that system, yeah, makes me want to harm myself if I feel like I'm in that system. But the beauty is you've never been in that. You've never been the mental instability. It's never been what you are. You are before it. Well, it doesn't feel like that. Yeah, it doesn't feel like that. Well, see what you're not, and then there you are. That's the crack of relief. Yeah. Hmm. And then you can sit in that for a long time. You can sit in that forever. It's what you are. That stable, spacious awareness. Because you've never hated yourself. It's just the head that's saying it hates itself. But you're not that. You're not that. Because it'll hate itself one day and then it'll love itself the next day. So what's happening? Seems a little wishy washy. You're not that movement. You come before that. Yeah, you come before that.